The first thing is, I always believe that Job had some rebellious kids, but we know he was one of the richest men in the land, and we know rich people's children, even to this day, the Bible says there's nothing new under the sun. So we know how rich poor children are in this dispensation of time. So Job was one of the richest men of the East, and you know, I don't go to bed thinking I he is able to pray the offering or sacrifice. Perhaps may have sinned against God. You would even think like that. You must really have some rebellious children to feel like you have to always pray for them every day you sacrifice. And the Bible says that it's a party, and it said they would go from one brother's house to the next brother's house, and they was turning up. So I believe Job had some really rebellious children. And
I agree with
this,
you.
when you had those rebellious children can have an influence on the whole community. And I think God put a stop to that, and I believe that He allowed all those children to be taken out at one time. Like something like that to be for a request like that for the enemy to submit something like that to God, and God would allow him to do it. And He told him don't touch his body. But I really believe Joe had some kids that were really bad and turned up, and God allowed them to be dealt with the way they did, because God knows the heart of man, and He knows when some people just won't change, and there's a certain influence that God does not want in a community. And you know, in that dispensation time, Joe and them had the community that.
I agree with you 100%, because with great wealth comes great influence. And if the influence is negative, you affect more people negatively. So I agree with you 100%. Who else is up here?
He said no longer.
Go ahead,
he
sir.
said no longer will you be able to use this proverb that the father have eaten sour grapes and the children's teeth are set at edge. He said that in Ezekiel and Jeremiah, which means God is saying, I'm not going to hold you accountable for what your fathers did. He said, all souls are mine, and the soul that sins of the Father as well as the soul of the Son. So I believe that you have generational demons that's connected to a bloodline that understand the specific power of sin in that each bloodline, and I believe they create circumstances and they create avenue where if you open a door and let the man that curse that was on your father could fall upon you. Because let me give you an example. I'm gonna be quiet. You take the average, let's say the average family that's come up in the ghetto. They got a alcoholic uncle, alcoholic granddad, and an alcoholic father. But because you saw that, you made up your mind because of what I saw that was done to me, to my father and my grandfather. I'm not going to touch alcohol. You never touch it, and it don't affect you. Mm-hmm. So that did not fall on you because the door was not open. You did not allow the demon to tempt you or create some type of scenario or circumstance to cause you to become an alcoholic, because you understood the power of alcohol and how it affect your father and your grandfather. So what you saw and what you learned from them was enough to say no to it. So that demon could not push you into it. So I truly believe that there are generational demons, but I don't believe that God holds us accountable for our parents' sins anymore, because He said that they can't use that. In other words, you can't be saying that God's saying, well, I'm judging you for the sins of your foreparents, because that's not how I roll now. So that's something that I believe, and I want your opinion on that.
Let me give you my opinion. Those two words, Ezekiel and Jeremiah, were conditional prophetic words, meaning, as you said, and you actually said it, if you did not follow in the same line of sin, if you did not continue to multiply that thing into generations, that specific thing may not afflict you. But there are other areas of generational sin that we can see that it's afflicting. Let me tell you something. Anything that is not under the blood will start to speak against you. So what you're saying is true. It's conditional, And this is why repenting for your forefathers, as Leviticus chapter 26 shows us, is something that I've never heard a preacher say, you can do this, right? Now, when we look at evidence for generational sin, anybody know about the Kennedys? All of their children, well, let me see, we have Bobby Kennedy, John Kennedy, both of them assassinated, got their heads blown off, right? One of their sons was skiing down a hill and hit a tree and broke his neck. Another one, his plane disappeared, and they all died these gruesome deaths. Why is that? No one ever repented for the father's role in prohibition. They were in the forefront of legalizing alcohol. Do you know how much damage alcohol has done to families in America and around the world? Because as America does, right, everybody else does. So your blood does have a voice. How do we know? Because when Cain killed Abel in Genesis chapter 4, the Bible says the blood, and that is not singular, that is plural. I looked it up. If you go to the Strong's Concordance, that word blood in Genesis chapter 4 is saying the bloods, meaning that generations of people have been extinguished. This is why abortion is such a wicked thing. This is why when we agree with people, right, that put these agendas out as a woman's right to choose, and what the truth is that destroying the image of God and destroying his children, destroying the future. If Jesus lived in dispensation in this age, who knows what Joseph would have told Mary? I ain't sleep with you. You gonna have to fix that. We not handling this. You're not gonna embarrass me out here like this. But what you're saying, Apostle, is absolutely true. And this is why we have to be almost like investigators. And anything that you cannot get from a conversation, an audible conversation with one of your relatives, go to God and let God reveal to you the situations that are in your history that are creating a problem for you today. Let me give you an example. So I went to Karen and Bob's in them park, right? Because one day I was just saying, God, the level of difficulty that I deal with, that I've always dealt with in my life. The only thing that came easy for me was talking. But when I looked at jobs where I hired people, I was the interviewee and the interviewer became my boss. Where I looked at the cycles of calamity in my life that just didn't make sense. Why am I dealing with these things the way that I'm dealing with it? I'm the best thing since sliced bread. I'm the #1 rep in the country for 3 years. I got the plaques to show it. Well, how when it's promotion time, they chose the dude from the Sharper Image? And one night I went down to the lake, and then I'll go back to the original story, and I'm like, God, this don't make sense. I'm your servant. I try my best to do what's right. I try to honor you with my life. And there's things that are happening in my life that just don't make sense. And he started to show me, he started to encourage me to count how many cars I've had. And by counting these cars, what happened to these cars? And I started to realize either a car was stolen, I didn't get paid up by the insurance, or I went through cycles of repossession. My cars always